Event organizers, get ready to level up. You're listening to the Event Academy Live podcast, where we elevate motivated event organizers. This podcast is brought to you by Fusion, all the event ticketing features and support you need for one low price. Check them out at getfusionsolutions.com. Now, it's time for your host, Jake Sperley.
Hey there, welcome back to this week's episode of Event Academy Live. My mama always told me to stay away from horse girls, but today we're bringing one on the show, someone that produces barrel races, top tier. Her name is Cristi from the Cornhusker Futurity. Cristi, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You know, I must admit, I haven't even had good luck in dating horse girls either. So this is super out of my comfort zone, talking about horses and barrel races. But Cristi, for folks that might not know about barrel racing, they're not really familiar with the horse world. Catch them up to speed. What do you do?
So our event is kind of a combination event. It's a barrel racing futurity. And so futurities are for young horses that are 5 and under. So a lot of them have professional trainers that's what they do, is train that age of horse that then potentially goes on to compete with other people as it becomes more seasoned. We also have a derby, and the derby is for horses ages 6 to 8. And then the open races that we have are for any age of horse. And then at our event, we also have what are called incentives. So the incentives require the horse that you are competing on to be out of a certain sire to be eligible for that extra money that you could potentially win. So in the incentives we have this year, we have the Future Fortunes. We have a $10,000 incentive from them. We have a $5,000 Select Stallion Stakes incentive and a $5,000 Royal Crown incentive.
Geez, I want to go win the Royal Crown. What do you think?
I love the Royal Crown. It's a great event.
I'm sure everybody does. So, I mean, when talking about horses, I think the thing that always crosses people's mind that might not be from the horse world is like, oh my gosh, a lot of work and very, very expensive. How much work is it to put on these events, or have you been doing it for so long that it's pretty much just plug and play, good to go?
I've been doing it for a while, but it is an immense amount of work, especially an event like I do. I'm down in Arizona today, and my friend Heather, who helps me with the barrel races, here today too. And I mean, we're working on it now, but as far as like the entries and getting all of those processed, getting everyone a stall assigned, then getting everybody in the draw, and you know, all of those things. Like we do, the draw is like the order that you compete in. So all of those things, and that you can't do really until close to the event. So those couple weeks before the event, we're probably working 12 hours a day on it. Wow,
that's just absolutely insane. Going from, I mean, I've never had a barrel racing event on the show, so this is kind of exciting, and I think there's going to be other things for people to learn from this. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Horse people are very particular, very picky about certain things. How do you, as the event organizer, manage those expectations from your consumers?
So I feel like barrel racers, the number one thing is the ground. The ground has to be good. And if it's not good, and good is defined as safe and yet fast, if it is not that, people won't come to your event. So for us, that's like priority number one. And that's not something that happens overnight. So like leading up to the event, myself, my husband, the gals that work at our fairgrounds are preparing the ground. And then about 2 days before the event starts, the tractor driving crew will arrive, and they will continue working on the ground. So that's kind of one of our things that we really have to work on, that our consumers are particular about, is the ground. Otherwise, I think the group that we have that attend our event, like the stalls, having things just convenient so people don't have to wait in line. So we try to, organize it. So if you order the shavings, the bedding for your stall ahead of time before you ever get there, we kind of try to stagger our check-in time so people aren't waiting in line, like those kinds of things, because nobody likes to wait in line. Like I don't like to, I'm sure you don't like to. So I think, just kind of knowing what your group likes and expects and then trying to address that.
I think that brings up several good points in that often we know what our consumers want, either by just, doing it enough times or asking them. But sometimes we just fail to anticipate their needs ahead of time. We get into this like reactionary state of mind instead of this proactive state of mind. Like you said, I've helped with many horse events, especially dressage events. I mean, it's very similar. Like things you're saying is very similar. Taking their shavings over there before they even get there. Assigning their numbers before they get there. And it's just these little things that people really appreciate because it's already done. Right? They can just come in, bring their horse, and it's done. They're move-in ready. They have everything they need right there. It's convenient. There's no opportunity for them to complain, and except for if they're, at the corner they didn't want to be. You're always going to have that, right? But just anticipating those needs. I think that's really something that we can do regardless of what kind of events we're putting on, whether it's an expo or a fair. Anticipate these needs in front of your vendors coming in, your exhibitors, your contestants, whatever it is. Because you're either going to address it ahead of the show when you have a lot more time, or you're going to address it during the show when you have zero time, and you're probably not going to be the nicest human in the world. Let's be frank. Yes. I've been there.
Yeah.
I think another interesting point that you brought up, and it's something I used to do when I was managing fairs and managing vendors, is check-in times. I see so often it's like, hey, when's check-in? Between noon and 10, and it's a free-for-all, and everybody comes either right at the beginning, right at the end, whenever. And you as the organizer, you're completely overwhelmed. People are waiting in line trying to check in, and there's a big line, and at the end of the day, nobody's happy with that experience. What was super interesting is when I moved, and it sounds like you've done this as well, to a check-in schedule of, hey, your check-in time is between 10 and 10:15 or 10:30, whatever it is, 30-minute windows. People all of a sudden magically respect that. And it's funny, if you give somebody a deadline, they magically meet it, right? It's kind of like putting things on a calendar. If we put something on a calendar, we magically get the thing done on our calendar. They know the exact expectation. You're going to reduce lines of people trying to come in all at once. Everybody's going to get in a lot safer, faster, smoother. It's a simple process, right? You just follow the process and everybody's a lot happier. Did you have to learn that through trial and error, or was this just in your mind, like, we're doing it this way, end of story?
So I go to a lot of competitions, and so I took over the Cornhusker 3 years ago. I purchased it from the person that had been producing it since the inception of it, and this year's our 20th year. But being a competitor myself, I knew the things that I don't like and the things that I do like. So some of it is from just having that experience of being on the end of waiting in line for 2 hours to get your check-in or whatever.
We're going to go down a rabbit hole here because you just said, correct me if I'm wrong, you used to compete at this event, and then whoever owned it before was like, all right, I'm done, and you acquired it from that person. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about this process. I think this is pretty common, of where we attend an event and we're like, hey, this, and this could all be better. Sometimes we never get that opportunity to do it. You've had that opportunity. What things was this event doing beforehand, prior to you taking it over, that were subpar and that you were able to come in and fix?
Marlene, the person that owned it, a great gal, a very good friend of mine. I love her dearly. She's a little bit closer to my parents' age, so not real into technology. So wasn't really doing anything with online entries. She had somebody that did her Facebook for her, but that was something that I felt like we really needed to address right away, because so many people would just randomly call you because you're from Nebraska. Hey, I wanted to know this about the Cornhusker or that about it. So, and just in today's day and age, people want to be able to just look it up online, look at it on Facebook, and prior to probably 5 years ago, everybody filled out your entries on a piece of paper, 9 pages long, you mailed it in. And so last year we did online entry, and the first year we did it, the first year we did paper only. It was the COVID year. The second year we did either or, and we had about 30% of our entries through online. And then last year we did online. And we still have the paper if you want to do that. And we were 70% doing that. In today's barrel racing circuit, added money is huge. So one of my first goals was really to increase the added money. So I doubled it from what it had been in the past.
Tell me a little bit about online entries. I see this a lot in the county fair world, especially with like vendors filling out their forms and submitting them, still done by paper. Talk about how much time it saves you by moving to these kind of automated systems where people can just go online, fill it out themselves, submit it. I mean, are you seeing a big increase in your efficiency? I mean, is it reducing time spent? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So yes and no. It's a lot more streamlined in futurities and the Derby. People have to submit like their horse's papers so I can verify the age of the horse, that it's in the incentives that we talked about. So that's like an important aspect. I have to be able to see the papers so I can look that up. So that has really streamlined it, because when people would mail it in, maybe they didn't have a copy machine to make a horse, a copy of the horse's papers or this or that. With the online entry, there's a link and they can send all of that, at one time. And so it's been really handy because you get everything you need. And you can, either look at it online. So right now in barrel racing, there's a lot of different software systems. And they're sort of made by people who maybe aren't competitors. So they aren't quite as smooth as you'd like them to be. So right now we have like 2 systems we use, because the one system is great for taking the online entries, doing your online exhibitions, super great for that. Not as great for doing the draw and those kinds of things. So we still have a little bit of stuff that's a little labor intensive with entering the stuff that came online into the system that we use to do the draw, to do the results, that kind of thing. And there's some new software ones that are out there this year that I'm looking at. It's supposed to be more of an all-in-one. So it's kind of a work in progress. And I know as the different those type products, like they're very much trying to understand exactly what it is barrel racing producers need, because our setup and our needs are different than what like a rodeo competition is like. So
yeah, everybody has their own unique needs, and it's shocking. Everybody, for the longest time I thought, hey, rodeo barrel racing, it's all the same thing. It's usually produced by the same people attend, but it is much different. There are these nuances in events that's so interesting to hear and to talk about, especially people on this show. Cristi, as we kind of wrap things up here, is there anything that I guess you wish you would have known before you started producing this barrel race, or maybe 1 or 2 things pieces of advice that you'd like to give to a different organizer?
I would just say definitely, if you keep your website and your Facebook stuff up to date, I think that helps eliminate getting, tons and tons of questions if you can just have everything where people can find it. And what was the other part? What was the other part?
Any advice you would give to somebody who's been producing an event for 30 years, or if they're brand new to producing?
I would definitely say, don't be afraid to try something new at your event or add something new. And my other piece of advice, make sure you have enough help, or maybe quality help. I'm really fortunate that people that help me in my office are so good and super helpful. And like, I use my nephews to do like the barrel setting, the moving of the barrels for when they drag the arena with the Vector. But that kind of stuff can make or break you too, because you really need people that you can depend on, but will do the job, and be on time and all those kinds of things.
You heard it from the horse lady herself. Cristi, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It was fun having you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Event Academy Live. We appreciate it. And hey, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Event Academy Live podcast.
This show is powered by Fusion.
Event solutions for the modern event organizer. Don't forget to like, rate, and review. We hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, keep leveling up, fellow event organizers.